In today's episode, I'll show you how I put together this 2-story townhouse for our medieval modular city. So this project is going to utilize a few of these dollar store doll houses, as well as some coffee stir sticks, some matchsticks, and a couple of barbecue skewers. So the idea I have in mind for this is to kind of make a little bit of an L shape on the ground floor and then add a second floor on top of it. Now, to make this work, we're going to need to remove some of the roof sections, and we're going to end up trimming one of them. Now the second roof section here, I'm going to do a kind of balcony setup, and I'll show you how I go about that process as the video goes on. So, we've got our materials. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the first thing I did was the areas where the roof section was going to get trimmed off, I clipped away any of the sections of the dollhouse that would attach the roof in place, and then using a hobby knife, I very carefully trimmed everything to be perfectly flush, just to make sure that there was no edges that could catch on anything. Once I had that done, I did a quick little test fit to make sure everything was going to kind of end up in place where I wanted it. So, I hadn't quite decided at this point where I wanted the stairs to be, but I knew I had to trim one of the roof sections to kind of make it a half roof. And I ended up deciding that the balcony was just going to be a pretty simple open balcony. So, as you've seen in previous videos, I kind of attached some chipboard on the inside of all the open areas after having removed all of the bits that I didn't want. Then using some chipboard, I cut a section that was going to sit flat on top of one of the lower sections of the building, and this is just going to be kind of the support section for the balcony, just kind of the area where everything is going to sit on top of. And a little bit of hot glue will kind of attach this in nice, quick, simple, and easy. Remove any glue that kind of seeped out on the edges. Quick little test, and this is going to fit quite nicely. Now, I thought about attaching an extra little section of chipboard, but decided against it since that area isn't really going to be seen. Then using a generous amount of hot glue, I attach everything together so that everything is fully secured and doesn't really wobble or doesn't have any loose sections. And as the build goes, this will get further reinforced by any wood trim or attachments that get added on. Alright, so now we need to attach our second floor, and again, that's just a simple little bit of hot glue, and then I'll go around the edges and just kind of secure it into place a little bit more. Now, off camera, where the roof attaches to the side of the building here, I do a little bit of reinforcement with some chipboard, just to make sure everything fully matches up and is nice and flush with the building. Alright, and here we are with it so far. Now, like I said, I want this to be kind of like a townhouse, so the idea is that this is essentially 3 houses that are one larger building. So, the second floor is going to have a set of stairs on the outside of the building to reach up to a door that I'm going to attach. I had thought about putting it on the front with the balcony, but I think I'm actually going to put it back here in the back. So let's go ahead and add some woodwork for our building. So using a rather generous amount of coffee stir sticks, I'm just going to quickly add in some little bits of wooden supports and trim around the ground floor and the second floor, just to kind of give the impression that there's wood siding or support beams holding everything in place. And for the corner pieces here, if there's any gaps in between the sticks, I fill it with a little bit of hot glue just to kind of make sure that there aren't any noticeable gaps. Now for these little sections that are kind of like a solarium or little nook, I take the sticks and mark them and then very carefully bend and break them so that they fit into place. Now you don't want to bend these too much because they will snap apart. I'm bending them just enough so that they fit into place. Now when doing this, it's easy to say, oh, well, I can just kind of cut all these pieces to fit everything beforehand, but I've learned that measuring and then cutting each individual piece, while a little time-consuming, is actually a lot more convenient because then everything fits exactly the way you want it to. Alright, so now that that's done, I added some quick little flooring for the balcony, and now for the railing, we're just going to take a few barbecue skewers, these are round ones, and I drilled a few holes around the edge of the balcony, and I'm just going to insert them into place. Now, I did end up making a mistake with this. I misjudged how tall the railing for the balcony here needed to be, and it ended up a little bit shorter than I wanted it. But by the time it was done, that was when I noticed it, so I just had to kind of accept that it wasn't going to look quite the same scale as everything else, but decided that that was acceptable. Since the models that I use for Tabletop are not exactly perfect scale either, it ends up being alright. Now for the railing on top of the pegs here, I took a piece of barbecue skewer and after marking where the pegs would be, drilled out a few holes so that it would fit onto the top of all the pegs. Now, on some of these it fit perfectly just immediately, but on a couple of them I had to kind of bend things to kind of get them in place. And you really want to do this before all of the glue has time to set and fully solidify. Now this is a bit messy, I got quite a bit of glue on my fingers, but by the time it was done, it had a really nice look to it, and I'm really happy with how it came out. Alright, once that was fully dry, I took a small little hobby saw and trimmed all the top bits of the pegs off, just to make sure that all of the railing was perfectly flush. There's no real trick to this, I just kind of went a little slow to make sure I didn't gouge into the banister itself, and just took my time and cleaned up all of the edges. Alright, so now to make some stairs. So I cut out this simple pattern, and this is a single stair step every 1/4 inch. And I made it about 1.5 inches wide, just to kind of give it a little bit of playroom to stand a model on each of the steps. Using a little bit of wood glue for the bottom step, I clipped a stair step into place. I made these just out of little coffee stirrer sticks. And then using some super glue, I super glued in the middle and the top step, just to kind of give an instantaneous hold and to lock everything in place so that it doesn't kind of move around. Then using a little bit more wood glue, I attached the rest of the steps. Now the reason I did this was the super glue will have an instantaneous hold. It'll kind of keep everything in place while you're working, but it's going to be really brittle and easy to break. Once the wood glue dries on all the other steps, it's going to hold everything into place a lot longer, and it's going to be a lot more secure. Alright, and then I do a quick little addition on the roof, just adding a few little roof slats. I'm not going to go over how I made these. It's just a simple grid on some cereal board, some light cardstock kind of stuff, and I just kind of nipped the edges, trimmed it out, and I'm just doing a simple alternating pattern across all the roof, and then just kind of add a few single pieces to cover up any empty spaces or the corners and edges of the roof. Alright, so now that that's done, it's time to paint. Alright, so I took this outside and gave it a full base coating in some Krylon camouflage brown spray paint. I really like this stuff. It gives a really nice base coat and it doesn't really take away from any of the details. Then I follow it up with a kind of a medium dry brushing over all of the wood sections using some raw sienna. This will give it that nice kind of processed timber look that I've grown to love so much in the paintings. And once that was dry, I did a dry brush over the whole thing with some warm gray from Master's Touch. This will give it that nice kind of exterior weathered appearance. Now, while that's all drying, I'm going to show you what I did with the stairs here. I added in a few kind of little banister railing kind of setup. This is pretty simple. It's just a couple of matchsticks that have been added in and a piece of barbecue skewer that was placed on top of them. And then I did a simple little support to kind of add a little bit of extra reinforcement to make sure it doesn't pop off the side of the building. And then I painted it up using the same paint scheme as the rest of the building with just a little bit of raw sienna followed up by a dry brush of warm gray. Alright, so now for our roof, we're going to apply a pretty generous coating of some deep green from Artist Loft. Now this is just to kind of match up with the rest of the roofs that I've done for the buildings in the city so far. I may do a different roof for like one or two buildings just to kind of show that they might be a different type of building, maybe do that for a shop or something like that. But overall, I'm just going to do a fairly generous coating, making sure that none of the original coloration of the roof tiles is visible through the deep green. And now using some light green, I do a dry brush just to kind of nip at the edges of the roof tiles to give a nice little two-tone appearance for the roof. Now this is achieved just by doing a brush from the bottom upward instead of from the top down. And this really just hits the edges of the roof, so it looks really nice once it's fully dried. Alright, now that the roof and the painting is done, it's time to add our finishing details. So first thing I'm going to do is attach all of the doors into place. And I'm not going to go over how I made these. I have a full video on how I make the windows and the doors for buildings like this. You can check that out. I'll put a link in the description below. Now I'm putting a couple of doors on the ground floor, and then I'm also putting a door on the balcony, and then I'm going to do a door on the back of the building that's going to connect up to the stairs. Now for our windows, I'm not going to go super crazy with these. I'm just going to put a few windows in here or there where I think windows would kind of make sense. And I'm doing a combination of these small windows that you see here, and then on the larger sides of the house, I'll do a few of the larger windows. Any that don't quite seem to fit quite snug, I'm going to apply a few extra little bits of hot glue. And then to kind of fill out the walls, I do a little bit of this wall filler. This is some lightweight spackle or wall filler that is mixed with a little bit of Mod Podge to help it dry a little bit faster and kind of flow better, as well as a little bit of some unbleached titanium paint. And this is to achieve the coloration that I want without having to go over it again later and repaint it. And if any of the pieces kind of get chipped or worn over time, I won't have to go back and repaint anything because all of the plaster is fully colored. Alright, and now the final step is to attach the stairs. Now to do this, I'm going to use a combination of a little bit of wood glue on areas that are going to contact wood directly, and then some hot glue for the rest to kind of hold everything in place. Now I'm going to be really generous with the hot glue just to kind of make sure everything attaches correctly. And that's going to fit nice and snug right up against the wall. And there we go, access to our second floor. And just like that, episode 8 is finished. Alright, so this one took me a little while to put together, but you can kind of see why. It's a pretty large structure compared to some of the other stuff I've been making, and with the winter cold recently, it's been a bit of a challenge to maintain time in my workshop to get all this put together. But I think the end result is awesome, and I can't wait to use it on the table. So thank you everyone for watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe for future content, comment in the comment section, and we will see everyone next episode.